Good evening. This is Maestro Cortello. Excuse me. This is Maestro Cortello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today we have a 1v1 on Quest Heresy. Our first player is Codex. He is playing as this Grey Knight Bro Captain, although this Bro Captain is something like orange or yellow. He is a tanky melee hero. He does not get suppressed or knocked down. He is a Grey Knight in Terminator armor with a big force sword. His opponent today is Dawn of War 2 caster extraordinaire Red Rupee, playing as this Techmarine. Starts off as a ranged hero, has several other guns, a lot of versatility with his guns, and he is even more versatile in the Elite mod now that he can also get an axe. He supports vehicles well, can build turrets, relay beacons, and yeah. So this is a game that was actually sent to me by Red Rupee, and for that purpose, for that reason, I was actually pretty excited to cast this. It's also against Codex. Now both of these players, I cast alongside both these players for the Come One Come All tournament that happened on April 21st. Red Rupee, as I'm sure all of you know, has been casting Dawn of War 2 for quite a while now. Codex, not quite as well known, but a very good player, also a very intelligent player, really knows his stuff. We brought him on in part because he's really a great choice for someone to co-cast with. It would even be great to have him even for something like this. I mean, it's basically like, as much as I try very hard to do my best to make my commentary very strategy-minded, make sure I'm not just narrating what's happening on the screen, and really trying to basically add a little more value to just to the cast. As soon as Codex starts talking about the game, I usually feel like an idiot, because whatever he says is so much smarter and makes so much more sense, and that's also very different from what normally happens. Normally when other people start talking, that's when I start feeling smarter, but in Codex, that's not the case. Red Rupee himself, obviously you guys probably mostly know Red Rupee as a caster. He's a solid player. I think I remember playing Red Rupee a long time ago back in Retail Ranked a few times, and I think whenever I ran into him in Retail Ranked, I probably just ended up conceding in probably under 10 minutes. Although it's been a while since I've tried that. Now, Codex has opened up with some pretty overwhelming map control. I guess just winning those early engagements, and I mean he's got really overwhelming map control. This is a matchup that I'm not terribly familiar with. I don't play Grey Knights. I do play the Apothecary a little bit. Used to be my main hero, but the Techmarine is my worst hero. Now what I do know is that most people, or at least people who play the Elite mod a lot, particularly higher level players or mid-level players, and especially people who actually play Grey Knights, their consensus is actually that Grey Knights are kind of bad, particularly in 1v1. I know a lot of people who are probably a little more on the sidelines, who haven't really spent that much time with the mod, usually tend to say the other thing, that Grey Knights are overpowered. But the general consensus for people who actually play is, and especially at higher levels, that Grey Knights are actually kind of bad. Now, one of the weaknesses of Grey Knights is that they're supposed to be very vulnerable to a lot of early melee. So that's one thing I've been doing, particularly since I play a hero who really does not have a lot of good early range DPS combined with his army, to go for a more melee build, and Grey Knights often have trouble dealing with that. Now, on the other side of things, Rupee clearly plays the Techmarine. This is a hero who, combined with his race, actually has very little melee, and in fact, very much a range-centric army. In fact, Red Rupee's entire army is ranged-oriented. He does have that Techmarine. Of course, he does have Devastators, Double Scouts now, and the Tax. Now, one of the things this means is that he won't have any trouble whatsoever focus firing the brother captain, since that can just be sometimes one of the challenges of dealing with Grey Knights. The type of hero that they have is very similar to a hero like the Chaos Lord or the Hive Tyrant. A slow, tanky melee hero who can be very oppressive. You can press forward a bit with him, and it can tax your opponent's micro, since they will have to kite and focus fire, usually using at least 2 ranged units to focus fire just that one unit. But the Space Marines, and especially with the Techmarine as their hero, really are just not wanting for range damage output. I mean, obviously the Techmarine doing very solid range damage to start out. Even better now that he has this Mastercrafted Bolter. Now that Mastercrafted Bolter will increase his range damage a bit. His starting Bolter is actually just fine, though, as far as damage goes. But usually you get the Mastercrafted Bolter instead for that high-powered shot ability. Will suppress, and it also does something like 180 damage in just that one shot. High burst damage. It's a high burst damage ability on a single model. It would instantly kill any of the single Stormtrooper models except for, I think, the Stormtrooper Sergeant. It's actually somewhat of a curious upgrade. He can also use it to control the Interceptors a little bit, and that's actually how we saw him use it. Now, Red Rupee has shotguns on one scout squad and a sergeant on the other. I'm actually not sure why he got the sergeant. He does not yet have to detect anything yet. He may actually just want it to have that grenade available, and we did see him try to use it. I don't think it worked. I kind of missed it a little bit. Codex still with overwhelming map control. He's had most of the resources. He has a significant VP lead. Red Rupee somehow, though, still makes it to Tier 2 first. Codex can get started on that. Actually, it doesn't actually look like Codex is behind, just that Red Rupee started it first. So these Interceptors right here, somehow they, unfortunately, not a great teleport. I guess they actually teleported slightly in front of the Devastator's firing arc. Codex's intention was probably just to teleport it next to the Devastator. But I think maybe to be a little safer there, you should probably just go for behind with the Interceptors. Certainly, when you're only in Tier 1, they do not have their Justicar, so they will not knock back. In that sense, they're very much like any other teleporting unit in that their teleport does not actually have any kind of offensive effect. We have a strike squad here with an incinerator, burn down 2 generators. Now, these Scout Marines, I'm not quite sure how they'll do against the Stormtroopers, but certainly right now the Scouts are out of cover while the Stormtroopers are in cover. I think the Scouts will be doing a bit more damage, and I think they actually could have won that fight if they had gotten into cover a little bit sooner. Techmarine here certainly needs to be careful. Again, the Stormtroopers are in cover, the Techmarine is out of cover, and he does need to retreat there. Now, if he were in cover, he could probably win against those Stormtroopers, even with what little health he had left. I feel like these Devastators are out of position now. A lot of units out of position. So Rupee really struggling a bit in this game. He's lost some generators. He has pretty much been on the losing end of map control the whole time. Yet somehow he seems to be keeping up roughly in tech. At least for now. Codex clearly has a better power income, plus 59, compared to Rupee's plus 34. Also has a better requisition income. He did have, I'd say, he probably had a more expensive starting build, at least it seems like it just by eyeballing it. He did get sergeants on both of his Stormtroopers, did get a weapon on his strike squad, did not get any weapons on his Interceptors, but I mean the Interceptors themselves are a very expensive purchase, both in terms of power and requisition. Strike squad also a bit expensive, and Red Rupee now has that Razorback out. Pretty good timing on that, I think. Right now the Razorback is completely uncountered. So that will give Rupee some time. One thing he could consider here doing is he could put a flamer on his tack, drive the Razorback up to the power farm of Codex, and then he should probably be able to get a full power farm wipe. Now he's about to suffer the power farm wipe. Instead, it looks like right now he's valuing stopping the power bash by Codex rather than inflicting one of his own. Although, if he manages this right, he could force off Codex's forces, and then he could actually follow that up with a Gen Bash of his own. And Red Rupee actually turns the map control a bit around, certainly at least turns the VPs around. It's now a triple cap in his favor, but he's already down to 117 VPs. Now, Red Rupee's been struggling a bit in this game, and it's not terribly surprising, in part just because Codex is actually a really good player. I don't know, I mean, certainly I think people who play the game regularly, and certainly if you've played with Codex, you know how good he is. But he's definitely, his name definitely hasn't been around as long as players like Toila Lee, Tex, and those players, or Dark Riku. And he probably is not quite as good as those players, but he's certainly pretty close. And either way, he's just a very, very good player, so I'm not terribly surprised to see Red Rupee struggling a bit. Red Rupee, pretty solid player as well, but I would expect Codex to be favored in this matchup, although Codex is playing Grey Knights, which is a little bit unusual to me. Librarian now out on the field for Red Rupee. I actually feel like you haven't been seeing the Librarian as much in the Elite mod as in Retail. In Retail, I think he was close to, I wouldn't say a go-to purchase, but certainly a purchase that was hard to go wrong with. For me, there was actually a time when the Librarian was, for me, a go-to purchase. I think a lot of that has to do with the Librarian's smite damage being reduced a bit in the Elite mod. It's still good, but it was very good in Retail. And, I mean, that was just one good thing about him on top of many other good things. Now, Veil of Time is still an extremely good thing about the Librarian that is still kind of tragically underused. And I think people often say that Space Marine is a relatively easy race to play, but I think using Veil of Time effectively with the as Space Marine with the Librarian is actually one of the tougher things to do with Space Marine, and that might be one of the reasons why you don't see it a lot. Smite does go down right there. This Razorback now starting to take a lot of Psy Cannon fire. Look at all that Psy Cannon fire, and it goes down. The Razorback goes down. I was not expecting it. Oh, this is a Purgation Squad. I thought that was going to be a Purifier or something. So, Codex, very interestingly, oh, grenade goes off on the Stormtroopers. 2 models down. I think more are going to go down now. These infiltrated scouts are detected but not doing anything. So I think it's interesting that Codex got the Psy Cannons and the Purgation Squad in Tier 2. Normally, at least for a long time, the Purgation Squad was basically a go-to purchase in Tier 1 for Grey Knights. First, because you get those Flamers early on, you can burn down generators, and then they scale with those Psy Cannons in Tier 2 being one of the main answers that Grey Knights have for AV. Red Rupee loses a scout squad there. I'm not sure why. But basically those Purgations and the Psy Cannons in general being just one of the answers that Grey Knights have for vehicles. One of their other weaknesses, aside from dealing with melee, is that they don't deal very well with vehicles. Their snares are hard to use, and although those Psy Cannons can be annoying, their anti-vehicle damage is not overwhelming unless you have multiple sources of them. That being said, let's see. Codex does have a Psy Cannon also on his Strike Squad. Has 3 on his Purgation, of course. He can even get 1 on his Interceptor, I believe. So this Devastator now is very well countered. Oh, wow, look at the Interceptors just tossing those Devastators around. Now, that was a very interesting play, although probably... So, actually, again, we're seeing some of that Veil of Time play there. Now, I think, yeah, Red Rupee... I think Red Rupee may have gauged that if he had just retreated his Devastators out of there, he would have lost the squad. So what he did instead was he combined Tome of Time on the Librarian, used Veil of Time on the Devastators to increase their speed, and then he also used the high-powered shot from his Techmarine to suppress those Interceptors so they could not follow. And that got his Devastators out of there. But Red Rupee, I think, struggling even more now, losing more generators. Now also losing units.
The enemy is capturing one of our victory points.
Now Codex is at the point where he could go to Tier 3. He could also soon get a Grey Knight Dreadnought. He is choosing to go to Tier 3. So again, that Librarian, I feel like has been a little underused a bit in the Elite mod. He's, again, still good. Right there, he was rushing in against those Stormtroopers. He by himself He does about 70 or 60 something DPS power melee with that starting force sword. Increases a bit if you get the force staff, although it's not a very common upgrade. And he can get in pretty quickly if you use quickening or Veil of Time on himself. And I think it'll be pretty good against the Grey Knights. Certainly, he can just tie up the damage from those stormtroopers. That's certainly one good choice for him as far as a melee target. Strike Squad might actually be a little risky for the Librarian to charge in on, although the Purgation Squad, certainly, it would actually be a very good use of the Librarian to have him tie up the Purgation Squad. Since the Purgation Squad is definitely one of the primary sources of range damage output that Codex has. If Red Rupee decides to get another vehicle, those Purgations, again, will be the main answer to a vehicle. So one of the things Codex often does, which unfortunately I'm not able to do right now, is that he'll often comment not only about how the engagement goes, but he'll often comment about the way an engagement goes and how that's actually influencing map control. And I guess that's just... And, I mean, that probably doesn't sound as complicated as I'm making it sound, but, I mean, it's often something that I'm not really sure how to fully explain, and certainly a lot of other people don't. But he just sees a lot of dimensions of the game, and not only is he able to explain it, but he's obviously doing it, since he's generally had the better end of the map control. A big plasma cannon shot really took out the health of, brought the health of the Strike Squad and the Purgation Squad down to about half, but they didn't lose a single model. So that scared them off, and some of the observers actually commented on the pain of getting hit by that Plasma Cannon Devastator. But it didn't actually cause any economic damage or bleed to Codex. He didn't lose any models there. But I guess what it did have the effect of is that it forced those interceptors, the Purgations, the Strikes, off the field. Now the map control is actually going back in favor of Red Rupee. So Red Rupee currently staying in Tier 2 while Codex is in Tier 3. Certainly some, yeah. Oh god, a big Grey Knight force coming right here, a Grey Knight blob. And we have an Artificer mine, so that means we have a fully kitted out Techmarine as well. Artificer armor, oh, now that was a nice plasma cannon shot. Took out two Purgation Squad models, and I think that Purgation Squad model, that Purgation Squad does die. So that was a nice juicy plasma cannon shot. That Plasma Cannon Devastator, I always say, not necessary, but precisely for what happened, it's really, really nice to have. It can be something that can pay off in spades, or it might not do much for you if it just keeps getting jumped and tied up. And especially you have to be careful about friendly fire, both for your own units and if you're playing a team game, for your teammates as well. So Codex actually now with a unit loss, but he is in Tier 3. Does not quite yet have the resources to make a major Tier 3 purchase. But once he does, Red Rupee might have a little bit of trouble. Now Red Rupee is, again, he's staying in Tier 2. I'm not sure what he'll want to do. It can be tough to... I mean, staying in Tier 2 is sometimes you just have to do it. If you just suffered too much economically, it might not be a good choice to just go to Tier 3 because you want to, when you can't really afford to make it work. You just won't have the resources to pump out a Tier 3 unit, and especially a Tier 3 unit that will like actually make a difference. Because if you just go to Tier 3 and then you only buy like you realize you only have the resources to buy a Tier 2 unit, then you just wasted 300 requisition and 150 power. Scout Squad just barely survives. Now for some races I think it's harder to not go to Tier 3. Of course, Space Marines are known for having an extremely threatening Tier 3. Although if there's any race that can afford to just stay in Tier 2, it's Chaos. So Red Rupee keeping up on the map control, actually a double cap in his favor. He does have this side VP. He's actually getting a decap on Codex's natural. And he has his natural, but Codex is getting it back.
We have 200 points remaining.
So one of the consequences of not going to tier 3, aside from not having access to tier 3 units, is actually somewhat more, maybe somewhat less obvious, but certainly very important, is that you don't have access to tier 3 globals. What that means is Red Rupee right now has 696 red. If he were in tier 3, he could use an orbital bombardment. But it's usually not a good idea to just go to tier 3 purely to use a nuke. At the very least, I'd say at worst, it's not worth it to go to tier 3 just to use a nuke. At best, it's a gamble, a huge gamble, where it might put you back in the game, or you might get absolutely nothing out of it and just waste not only the resources of going to tier 3, but also the red of using that nuke. So Red Rupee, what he might try to do, those Devastators actually, they got gated out of there by the
Deploying war gear.
The Librarian has the Psychic Hood. It does give him the Gate of Infinity ability. You hardly ever see that ability. Again, that's something, an aspect of Librarian play that you just don't see a lot, I think. I'm not sure why. Maybe just... I mean, certainly the most common thing you see out of the Librarian is the Tome of Time and the Veil of Time. The other abilities are slightly less used, although the Gate of Infinity ability is extremely useful when combined with Terminators, since they, of course, cannot retreat. And Red Rupee staying in this game. So, Red Rupee, 730 red. He can use that to support his Dreadnought by using the Blessing of the Omnissiah Global. And he can use that basically as much as he can, and that's probably what he will try to use with all that red, since that's probably the best he can do with it. A drop pod, I don't know if it'll quite be worth as much. Rupee does need to be careful about the Strike Squad as well as the Purgation. No, the Purgation's dead, so actually, that's actually a really good choice by Red Rupee, since Codex does not have much AV. Codex is now going for a Land Raider Crusader, and normally that's a very good choice, but I'm actually worried in this case that Red Rupee is going to be on the better end of that, having a Techmarine with the Orbs of the Omnissiah, as well as having a Dreadnought. And a Dreadnought, if anything, is probably going to be a counter to that. And Orbs of the Omnissiah already go down. Red Rupee is hitting the Land Raider Crusader with Plasma Cannon Devastator shots. And this is actually, this is actually well managed by Rupee and not so much by Codex. Codex is using the support abilities of his Land Raider Crusader to keep all these units out on the field, but not the strongest showing, I think, from his Land Raider Crusader. Oh, if this Dreadnought did not get a sync kill, might have been able to take out that last Interceptor Squad model. But Red Rupee now getting the map control. Yeah, he's getting back on the field. He needs to get the cap, though, and he does not have that much time. And now actually should probably, if anything, back off with his Dreadnought, and he needs to use that Blessing of the Omnissiah. He's got 999 red. And he really also needs to get those VPs. I think, yeah, he should put the Techmarine on Codex's natural. He should use Blessing of the Omnissiah to heal his Dreadnought. And he might want to consider getting a Las Cannon.
Victory looms.
I'm actually liking Red Rupee's play. Yes, there goes that Blessing of the Omnissiah. And Codex, yeah, Codex actually lost his... So Codex now has no AV aside from the multi-melta on that. Oh, and he does decide to upgrade to that Las Cannon. This could be really bad for that Land Raider Crusader. Land Raider Crusader does get hit by another Orb of the Omnissiah. And I think Red Rupee just might manage to pull it out of this game. Plasma Cannon Devastator absolutely destroying that Stormtrooper squad. This Bolter Devastator guard actually going to take out that Inquisitorial Stormtrooper. No, he's doing nothing. And Red Rupee, I think, is going to win this game. And he takes out the Land Raider Crusader. Codex calls a GG.
The acceptance of defeat.
Wow.
An invitation for its repetition.
So that was a beautiful game by Rupee. I mean, I hate to say it. I like the guy, but I honestly kind of went into the game expecting Codex was going to win. And certainly for most of the game, it looked like that. Especially, I mean, Rupee was down in tech the whole game. There were times he was down in map control the whole game. Just some great late game plays. Great job using what he had in Tier 2. The Dreadnought ended up being a really good choice. Really beautiful play. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.